So, hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And I am so excited to welcome for the first time ever our amazing cosmetic chemist, Tonya Lane. And I have to tell y'all, when I had first started this journey, she was one of the few channels that really resonated with me because of her authenticity, because of her what literally I could feel the care coming through the screen as well as the knowledge. And so, Tonya, thank you so much. Number one, just for being here.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that was my original sort of introduction, or introduction to you was a couple of years ago. But I have to give you a really special thank you too, because when we first connected, I think it was in October, November of last year, and I was at a really low place for this channel. And I was like, Lord, should I even be doing this? Is this even helping anybody? Do I keep going? I don't even know. I just was at a really hard place. And your reply was the yes that I needed to keep me going.
Wow.
So I want to thank you for that, right? Because it was just, you saying yes was like, to me, it was like God saying, just keep going. Because
Wow.
it was a few more, it was going to be months before we talked again.
Yeah.
And so I do want to say this note for anyone who hopefully and prayerfully this video is your yes to keep holding on and to keep going. I just want to say that. And so to that end, let's just get started and let's talk about your background first, because I would love to hear, for those who don't know who you are, your background and how you got into hair and chemistry. And then let's just go straight into scalp care, because it's one of the top questions that we get is for women that are dealing with various types of hair loss.
Yeah.
How should we even approach scalp care? So share with us.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm so excited to be here. Once again, thank you for having me. So happy to be here. So for those who may not know, my name is Tonya Lane. I am a cosmetic chemist specializing in natural hair care. And basically, I have been in the industry for really a little over 8 years. I hold a bachelor's and a master's in chemistry. And a lot of my formulation experience started around like 2016, 2017, around that time. So that's really where I learned more about like these ingredients and the hair care ingredients and even skincare ingredients as well. And in the background, I had my YouTube channel where I was talking about hair care. And then around 2019, I would say, that's when I really started bridging the science and the hair care together. And it just literally birthed Curly Chemistry. So the platform that I have, I do a lot of education and just talking more about like the science and the ingredients behind our hair care products, our hair, our scalp. So it's so much to learn because there's always so much research and things coming out, but it's truly an honor to be able to share my knowledge with the world. So happy to be here.
So we are blessed to have you. And so let's just jump right in. Let's just jump right in and talking about scalp care and hair loss, because we know that there are a lot of different types, obviously lots of different types of hair loss. But one of the questions that I see frequently, one of the questions even that I've had is learning and understanding what is actually happening when there's scalp inflammation. And simultaneously or in addition to that, what can we do to help calm it down from your perspective as a scientist?
Yeah, absolutely. So when there is scalp inflammation, what's really happening is the result is disruption of the hair growth cycle. So we have the hair growth cycle where you have like the anagen phase, which is the active hair growth phase, the catagen phase, which is like the resting phase, and then you have the telogen phase, which is the actual shedding phase. So we want the anagen phase to always be working for the most part. That's when we're seeing the growth, we're seeing the length, we're feeling the little new growth, right? But when inflammation, in a sense, comes on the scene, it actually disrupts our hair growth cycle. So that marvelous anagen phase, it actually shortens that phase. So for example, on average, the anagen phase can be between 3 to 5 years. And this is just 3 to 5 years of active hair growth before that hair sheds from scalp, right? But if there's inflammation in the scalp tied to scarring, alopecia, for example, that 3 to 5 years can be cut down to maybe 1 year or 1 to 2 years, and sometimes less than that. So you are getting less anagen phase hair growth, and it also pushes the hair into the telogen phase, that shedding phase. So hair that should be growing is actually shedding a lot quicker when there's inflammation. So that's kind of what's going on behind the surface. And as far as like, in a sense, what to do to kind of calm that down, you know, yes, products are always going to be the way to go, you know, absolutely. And if you go that route of looking for different like scalp serums or even shampoos, I would look for ingredients that have anti-inflammatory properties. So like aloe vera juice is going to be my top ingredient that I would look for. Second thing I would say would be, caffeine, for example. And then also green tea extract, amazing antioxidant, also very anti-inflammatory. So ingredients like that would be ideal for sure.
Okay. And so for the phases, are all the hair follicles in the same phase at the same time? Or could it be one section in anagen and another section in telogen? Like, is there any symmetry with that?
That's a great question. Yeah. So if you think about it, we have like thousands and thousands upon thousands of follicles, right? Like individual hairs. And each individual hair is going through its own phase.
Okay.
So it's never like all of our hair is in the anagen phase, always like different things. So, but I will say about 5 to 10% of the follicles are currently in that telogen phase, that shedding phase. And that's why usually every time we comb our hair, you know, we do shed 50 to 100 strands a day, because once again, at any given moment, 10% of the hairs in a sense are going through that shedding phase. Now, if inflammation once again comes to play, then that means that 10% gets increased. Now maybe like 30% of our hair shed because of that inflammation. So yeah.
Okay. I'm just thinking about what are the internal factors that could cause or exacerbate maybe scalp inflammation, because a lot of us are sometimes thinking about, we think about sugars, we think about, all these things. So any insight there that you want to share?
Yes. I'm so glad you touched on that. So definitely, because I think earlier I led with like, products are great, but as you mentioned, the internal plays a big part too. A lot of times if we have a not so healthy diet, for example, or if we are consuming high carbs and high sugar and soda and fast food, processed food pretty much on a regular basis, that's absolutely going to increase the inflammation in our body, especially within our scalp. So I would highly recommend if you could do like a low carb diet, especially if you have been diagnosed with like scarring alopecia or any inflammation related, condition, I would highly recommend doing some lifestyle changes, low carb diet, more healthy fats, salmon, for example, more leafy greens, for example. I think that'd be really, really helpful for sure.
Okay. That's a good reminder for us, because and so thinking through, because I've seen people on this channel and in other forums that I'm in, and they talk about the challenges that they're having with their scalp in terms of it being red or being inflamed. Like literally it feels inflamed. But then there's also, we've had a physician or a dermatologist tell us that sometimes there's inflammation and there's no symptom. Right? Can you talk to us a little bit about symptoms of inflammation?
Yeah. So as far as symptoms go, I mean, and as you said, sometimes the inflammation is not so visible, right? But a lot of times, if you are experiencing a lot of excessive shedding, for example, inflammation could be that underlying culprit in a sense. But as far as like physical symptoms that you can see, absolutely, like redness, for example, irritation, discomfort, itchiness, soreness to the touch, all be like a sign of inflammation in the scalp as well.
So I want to talk about this at the end, but I'm so excited. I saw your tea rinse.
Oh,
so at some point, let's talk about that. But let's talk about the different types of products that would maybe natural or maybe even things that we can purchase that can help reduce some of that sort of external scalp inflammation. Like, what are the things that you think we could be utilizing
Yeah, like actual like products, for example.
Products.
Great question. So there's quite a few. So I do recommend scalp serums, for example. So water-based scalp serums are gonna be ideal. There's one I talk about pretty often on my channel. It's by a brand called Pacifica. You can get it at Ulta. Of course, Amazon sells as well, but it's called Pacifica Scalp Love serum, and basically it has a lot of hydrating ingredients going to help to reduce like dry scalp, which can also be a culprit of like inflammation and alopecia, for example. But it also contains aloe vera within it, which once again is like it's like that number one ingredient that I highly recommend for the scalp. So Pacifica Scalp Love Serum, absolutely. Another good product I think be really good is called it's by the brand The Ordinary. The Ordinary has a scalp serum. It also contains some peptides in there as well to help support hair growth while soothing the scalp. Because especially with that inflammation, you want something that's going to soothe and calm the scalp and not be too like harsh on the scalp. And that's where those water-based ingredients with those nourishing ingredients will be ideal.
Okay. And if you see me look down because I'm writing my notes. Peptides. Tell us about that. What are peptides?
Yeah, absolutely. So peptides are amazing, and what makes them so amazing, because there's different types of peptides out here, but what makes them so amazing is that they are so small. And because they're small, they can penetrate deep within the scalp and actually be very efficacious within, so anytime I see a peptide for like hair growth, for example, that's something that I would highly recommend. A really popular one that I feel like is going to be even more popular soon is copper peptides. The brand, actually, I think the Ordinary Scalp Serum does contain copper peptides. Another good one that I would recommend too is by a brand called Divi. It's Divi Scalp Serum. It's like a green bottle. I believe they also do have the copper peptides within them. But those copper peptides, not only do they also help with hair growth, but they also help to reduce DHT within the scalp, also tied to androgenic alopecia. So yeah, I would check that out.
Oh, that's good. This is hot off the presses, new for me, new information. I did not know about the peptides and the size and that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. Okay. So this is the age-old question. Grease or no grease? Because I've seen quite a few videos about grease or no grease, but I am someone, since I've had my diagnosis and my personal treatment plan, I do not put anything on my scalp. I wash and just because I tried to put grease, I tried the different things, and usually, first of all, I'm not consistent enough, but it's like, I don't know that it's helped or hurt, but so but usually a lot of the questions that I get is particularly related to hair loss issues are, what are you using on your scalp? And for me, I'm not using anything on my scalp. I am washing it, conditioning, keeping it moisturized and all of that. But there are some who swear by grease and some who are like, don't touch it. So do you have any insight in terms of the chemical benefits or not of using grease with hair loss?
Yeah. So hair grease for hair loss, pretty much.
Yes. Yeah. I went around a block to say that. But yeah.
You're fine. So for me, when I look at hair grease, I look at hair grease not so much for like hair loss. I look at it more so for like lymph retention or locking in moisture, for example. So on my channel, I'll talk about hair grease and how it's great to support, more moisturized hair, because it is chemically a very occlusive ingredient. So it does a good job at keeping moisture in the scalp and keeping moisture in the hair. But once again, with everything, it varies, because there are some people who can handle hair grease and some people who just, their scalp and hair does not like it at all. So it varies. So I don't really look at hair grease for like hair loss. I just see it more of like a locking in moisture type of technique or mechanism that varies per person. Now, as far as what to put on the scalp for hair loss, that's where those scalp serums come into play. For example, that's where scalp oil, like lightweight hair growth oils, for example, can come into play. Scalp massages, in my opinion, are very underrated, and I highly recommend them for sure to get that blood flow going to the follicle. So between scalp serums, hair growth oils, and scalp massages directly on the scalp would be ideal.
Okay, okay. And let's talk about the oils.
Okay.
Which was, I know I've heard you talk a lot about jojoba.
Yes, yes.
And I've had even someone talk about Batana, which is a little bit thicker, I think.
Yeah.
So which oils do you think should we sort of hone in on?
Hone in on, yeah. So I would say lightweight oils for sure. When I say lightweight, I'm referring to, like you said, the jojoba, because jojoba naturally matches our scalp natural oil, the sebum. So jojoba would be great. Grapeseed oil, hemp seed oil, which is really interesting because a lot of people are not too familiar with hemp seed oil, but hemp seed oil, I want to say, does contain a nice amount of zinc within it naturally, which helps to strengthen the follicles of the hair. I want to say it's also anti-inflammatory as well, that oil. So that would be a great oil for like scalp massaging, and of course, sweet almond oil as well. So those four I would highly recommend for like the scalp.
Okay. And then how long? Now you're almost giving us a mini masterclass here.
Okay.
How long should we be massaging? So if we do a scalp massage, how long do you think we should be massaging?
So a good telltale sign is when it starts to feel warm.
Okay.
That warm sensation, that's blood. That's your body saying, hey, there's blood flowing in this area. You know, you're doing a good job. So I would say once you start feeling that, I would say mission accomplished. And that can be around 3 to 5 minutes. I think 10 minutes and over is kind of overkill, you know.
Okay.
3 to 5 would be great.
Okay, that's good. You are just cranking it out here. So let's talk a little bit about the actual sort of hair shaft. Is that we call it the hair shaft itself, right? And the hair care and moisturizer. Because I will say one thing that I learned from you was around, because at the time when I was going through my scenario, I was seeing a lot of mixed reviews about things like keratin and amino acids and proteins and add this and then don't add that. And I can't even remember the video you did, or I can't even remember all the details, but I specifically remember you kind of saying that it's okay to use like keratin or certain types of proteins, saying thank you, because they can help fill in some of the gaps. I found a product by The Do, and they do a gel. And I promise, I use a lot of different products. I've tried a lot of different things, but that is the one product that it feels like it's making my hair thicker. So the Big Papa gel, Papa gel. So where the early scarring was, it's thinner. It grows back and it grows thinner. But the Do products, I don't know whether it's camouflaging it or whether it's really helping it get thicker, but when I use it consistently, it completely helps. So can you talk to us about different products that might help with the texture of our hair for those who might be struggling with strands and thickness?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I would tackle it, or I would kind of answer this in regards to like proteins and also essential oils.
Okay.
You know, just kind of honing in on those two. So with the product you're referring to, I haven't seen the ingredient list, so I can't like point out what exactly it is. But if there is some protein in that product, even if it's just a little bit, you know, that protein can help with the density and the thickness of the hair. And you're right, because our hair, the cuticle of our hair, is very similar to shingles on a roof. You know, so when we may be combing or brushing it, sometimes it can lead to like little holes in the cuticle of our hair, which can lead to dryness, you know, moisture loss, for example, frizziness, dullness, for example. So if that product does have a bit of protein in it, it does help to fill in the gap and in a sense restore the hair as well, which can of course improve the look and the feel of the hair. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's technically what's going on there, you know. So that's the protein piece. And then the essential oil piece, I'm really referring to essential oils like peppermint or rosemary, for example, even though this may not be directly in that product, but that's also one of those ingredients that I typically recommend to help thicken the hair. there is a research paper that was done, I want to say back in 2010 or 2012, where they saw that peppermint does help to support hair growth, but it also helps to improve the density of the hair. And typically it needs to be used around 2 or 3% in the formula. So once again, going back to those hair growth oils and those hair serums, look for things like peppermint, for example, because research shows that they do help support hair growth and density as well. So proteins and essential oils, ideal.
Okay. So a question about the percentages, just to talk a little bit. So if we have, how in the world would we as a layperson determine that we're getting, if I have jojoba oil and I have a peppermint essential oil, how am I figuring out that I'm hitting that 2% or 3%? Like, is there a range? Is there something we should be looking out for?
Yeah, so there's a cheat, like I guess like a cheat code in a sense, So what I would do is I would make 100 grams of this oil, right? Because the 100 grams will reflect the 100%. So when we are, in the hair care industry as cosmetic chemists, when we create formulas, 100% is like our magic number for a formula, So if we're making, I don't know, a hair growth oil, and if it's 2 ingredients, maybe it's 50% olive oil and 50% jojoba, that's 100. It's a complete formula, So for like DIYing at home to kind of match that 100%, without like without making it too technical, I would just make 100 grams of this oil, right? I would do 97 grams of jojoba oil.
Okay.
And then 3 grams of the peppermint. So that so that will give you that 3% peppermint and that 97% jojoba oil. So if you're making 100 grams, let that reflect that 100%. And you can do that with other oils as well. So yeah.
That is really helpful.
Yeah, that's what I would do. And then also I would do 96% jojoba, 3% peppermint, and let that extra 1% be vitamin E oil.
Okay.
Because jojoba oil will go rancid over time, but adding vitamin E does help to kind of extend that shelf life a bit. And it's an amazing antioxidant as well. So that's what I would do.
So you just gave us our own DIY. We're all our YouTube chemists. Just kidding. We're not. Just kidding. So what are the ingredients that we should be avoiding if we are dealing with scarring or early scarring or even just hair loss in general? What are the products and the ingredients and things that are like a run, go this way?
Yeah, great question. So dealing with scarring alopecia, alopecia, hair loss, your scalp is going to be very sensitive at this point in time. So I would avoid harsh ingredients. I would avoid drying alcohols for sure. So like a big one would be isopropyl alcohol. Like that's considered a drying alcohol. Ingredients like cetyl alcohol, cetyl alcohol, those are fine. Those are fatty alcohol. So those are great. But isopropyl, I would avoid that because it's a very drying ingredient. I would also avoid sulfates as well. Now, sulfates as a whole is not technically a bad ingredient, but it can be a harsh cleansing surfactant for those who do have alopecia, scarring alopecia. So I would avoid drying alcohols and sulfates.
Okay. And for everyone that's watching, as always, we talk about a lot of the information on this channel being descriptive and not prescriptive because everybody's situation is unique. And so let's keep that as the lens with which we look, because what might work for one may not work for the other. So we'll keep that in mind as we're, learning. So let's pivot a little bit.
Okay.
So when thinking about hair care, something as basic as, from your perspective, how often should we be washing, conditioning, I mean, it's all over your channel, so I something that you addressed multiple times. So, but thinking again about the context of hair loss and trying to regrow hair or trying to at least keep what we have, what is your perspective on washing and conditioning and deep conditioning hair?
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, I think that's going to be pivotal. It's key. It's important for maintaining our hair. I think for a long time, we as a community and a culture, we focus so much on like the styling of our hair, you know? So basically, I feel like as a culture for a while, we've been really focused on styling, you know, and like, you know, the braids and the twists and the flat ironing and whatnot. And that does play a role, but the core of our hair care is going to be the maintenance. And as you mentioned, the shampoo, conditioning, and deep conditioning, that's going to maintain the health of our hair. So it's going to be highly important, especially if healthy hair care is the goal, healthy scalp care is the goal. I definitely recommend, you know, letting your core shampoo be a hydrating shampoo. You know, this can be used once a week or once every 2 weeks. I don't recommend going longer than a month without shampooing your hair, because that alone can also cause a lot of, you know, scalp issues, dandruff, for example, inflammation on the scalp as well. And then after every shampoo, you know, use a good moisturizing conditioner. I also recommend deep conditioning maybe once a month or as needed, you know, as like extra TLC for your hair. Of course, in between your wash days, if your hair does feel dry, you can always use a moisturizer, you know, to moisturize your hair. This can be a liquid leave-in spray or a cream, you know, product to help maintain that moisture even longer. I recommend sealing in that moisture with a lightweight oil like sweet almond oil, for example, or avocado oil. And then for the scalp, if your scalp feels dry or itchy in between your wash day, you can use, you know, different scalp serums, water-based serums to keep that hydration before your next wash day. So that maintenance part is going to be so key. So
And regular. I find that if I don't, I try to wash every 7 days, but there are times sometimes where I can feel, this actually just happened, where my scalp just will, it feels like it's randomly getting more tender. And then I will think like, wait, when was the last time that I washed my hair? Like if I go more than 7 days, my scalp will tell me like, nope, get in there.
Scalp talks to us, like it will respond and talk and everything. And that's why it's so important for us to be able to have, you know, like to listen and to take notice of it, you know. So it's amazing how God made our bodies. It's amazing, out of this world.
I know. Well, let's go there a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about from that perspective. Let's go into that realm a little bit, just because I think a lot of times we have science, we have the books, we have these things, but we don't always really get to talk about the faith side of it. Like we don't get to talk about maybe sometimes how God used, like you said, like our scalp talks to us. I don't have a question, but like, what would you like? Yeah, let's talk about it.
I would say that one of the revelations that God gave me maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and I think I talked about this before on my channel, how it's amazing how our body like can mirror nature in a sense, you know. So one of the things that he said was like our scalp is like the soil, you know, and our hair is like the flowers and the plants and whatnot, you know. And if you have a plant at home, you can look at it and tell what it means. Like, okay, the leaves are kind of yellow, you know, or okay, it looks dry, it's breaking off, you know, like it's wilting, you know, like that. The same thing happens with our hair as well. So one of the telltale signs of dry hair, it feels dry, it feels brittle. It's kind of, you see the breakage on the sink, you know, your hair feels kind of, your scalp was kind of itchy. You can see the buildup. That's your body, your scalp, you know, speaking to you and like what to do and what you need and whatnot. I just think sometimes we just don't know the communication is sometimes, you know, it really is a language, like a hair language, you know, like being able to know, okay, my scalp is doing XYZ, it means I need to do this over here, you know. So I think there should be more talk around that too, like hair language. So we speak fluent in hair language, you know. So
I love that. I love that. And Tanya, I remember that video.
Oh, you
I
did?
remember that video because because it resonated with me so much.
Yeah.
Because I think about, like, we are on these journeys, and sometimes I think it can feel like we are so alone,
Mm-hmm.
and that God either sees or he doesn't care, or that, we're just in this by ourselves. And I think, again, seeing that on your channel, going through this myself, like, it's like he's everywhere.
Everywhere.
And like he's building in healing and drawing us to him in everything.
Everything. And it's
So,
relationship. It's relationship.
yeah.
It's like, what kind of relationship do you have with your hair?
Yeah.
Like, are you loving on your hair? And that's why I love what Tabitha Brown has done, where she's named her hair Donna. Like,
Like what?
like, y'all see Donna today? Look at Donna, y'all. It's like she's giving her hair life.
Yeah.
Also, now you have a relationship with your hair, and now you're more in tune with it because of that relationship. So, hey, you may need to name your hair or something.
I know, right? Look. And then and also, even we can even add this to the mix about kind of even accepting our beauty where we are, right? And so, which is so hard. I remember there was a time, girl, my hair, I was like George Jefferson. It was like, it was all gone here. Like, it was so super thin, and it's still short, but I'm learning. I'm not there yet.
Great, though. Your hair looks great.
But I'm learning, right?
Yeah.
To accept where I am, and also, pursuing healing and health and nourishment at the same time.
Yes.
So, okay, this is good. So, this might be a good one. Maybe you'll think it's a good question, but what's a common mistake people make when we're switching from clean, or natural hair care products? Like, sometimes, there was a thing a few years back where it was like, basically, don't use shea butter anymore. Don't use all these, we went from extremes, right? So what are some of the common mistakes we're making when it comes to even making the decision around what we should be doing in terms of hair products?
Yeah. So I would say, well, to answer your first question, like, one of the biggest mistakes I've seen people make when it comes to like going clean or natural is that they think it'll be more effective because it's clean and natural. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you'll use a shampoo that's clean and natural, but it's too drying on your scalp, or it strips your hair of oils, And then sometimes those clean products can also be irritating to your scalp as well. I think every ingredient has the possibility of being an irritant on the scalp, because everyone's scalp is different,
Right.
So that's one thing I would say. But my biggest thing I would say too is you have to do what works best for your hair. Like, that's like the biggest thing. I'm not into the whole thing of like, oh, don't do XYZ, don't do XYZ, don't use oils, don't use butters. I mean, hey, that's my opinion. That we are no longer in that phase anymore, because I was just crazy. Right. But what I'm saying is, if you have a technique or you're using a product, I don't care if it's hair grease, if it's working for you and your hair is responding well to it, stick with that thing. And I see it so many times, and it breaks my heart. Men too, will stop using something because someone said it's bad. Right. And they go to use the thing that someone said, use this instead, and now their hair just is like breaking off, and it's dry, and it's just complete opposite, and now they got to go back to figure out what went wrong. And it's just, you have to do what works best for your hair. I don't care if I say don't do something. If that something works, you keep doing that.
Right. Like, I remember there was a physician I know, not that I know, but I saw on, I think it was TikTok, and she 10 toes down, don't use castor oil, right? On your 10 toes down, don't use castor oil. And they lit her up in those comments. Because people were saying it works for us, right? So someone like, I hear you. Do what works for you.
you.
Right. Like all of it is designed. I mean, a lot of these things are, I guess, they're guidelines and they're resources, but it goes back to even what you what you were saying is
Yeah.
sort of being in communication, like being in tune. Some of it's being in tune with our bodies.
Mm.
And I think some of that is us, especially for those of us who are of a certain age, like of just being able to calm down a little bit, right? We have a lot going on and just paying attention.
Mm.
So we are, this is going by really fast. So let's talk about, from your perspective, the future of hair care. Because I found I was doing research and I
Yeah.
found this Market Watch analysis, and it was basically saying that the growth of hair loss solutions over the next 10 years
Mhm.
is going to be in the billions,
Oh, I
right?
believe it. Yeah.
And that, I have a lot of thoughts about that, because I'm like, okay, so I have a
Mhm.
lot of thoughts about, anyway, maybe that's a separate conversation. But what are some of the advancements and things that you are seeing, maybe from, I guess, from the science perspective, or technologies or things that you're seeing,
Mhm.
um, or that you could even maybe, you have a vision for in terms of supporting people with hair loss?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as far as what I kind of see or predict and whatnot for the future for hair care, definitely, as you said, more hair loss solutions, but I also see more, more funds backing research, especially research behind textured hair, ethnic hair, really
Mm-hmm.
understanding our scalp, our hair. I see more scientific evidence, backing these ingredients that we're using. So I do see more funds, going towards research for, you know, like I said, textured hair for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Definitely more scalp care. I feel like scalp care is trending, and I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon, because we're realizing that scalp care, once again, is the foundation to healthy hair for
Right.
sure. Definitely more. There's a term called skintification. So
Hmm.
it's like using skincare ingredients and using them in hair care ingredients. And we're
Hmm.
seeing that with like the hyaluronic acids, entering into deep conditioners
Okay.
now, so like more vitamins that we'll see in like skincare serums are going to start entering into shampoos and into, scalp serums and conditioners,
Mhm.
so more high quality vitamin science back ingredients for sure. I mentioned earlier about those copper peptides, more things like that, more
Mhm.
scientific driven technology, more innovative ingredients for sure.
Mhm.
Because if hair loss solutions are going to be more, if they're going to be growing more, like within the next 10 years or so,
Mhm.
innovation has to be the backing behind that for sure.
Right.
So that's kind of what I kind of envision. So,
Right. Right. So thinking of your vision, let's go to your vision again.
okay.
Two things. One is, if you could create the perfect product, a perfect product for someone dealing with hair loss, what
Mm.
would it include and why? And then we want to close out with, I want to hear all about your tea rinse.
Okay.
So because I'm going to get one, but so tell us about your tea rinse.
Yeah.
But yeah, the perfect product for people with hair loss. And again, I know everyone, we're talking, it could be all different types of hair loss. So
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
yeah.
I would create some type of lightweight oil based serum that has vitamins within it. It would have aloe within it. It would have ceramides within it as well to help with the scalp barrier, to help block in moisture.
Okay.
I would, of course, have like the trifecta of essential oils:
Mm-hmm.
rosemary, tea tree, peppermint for sure. I think I call that the hair growth essential oil trifecta, because I think
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. But I would also include uh, adaptogens into this hair oil serum.
Mm-hmm.
Adaptogens help to reduce stress related hair loss, which is also a big thing as
Yep. Yep.
well. you know, so I would have things like ashwagandha within there, green tea in there. So just a really holistic, nourishing blend that kind of caters to those little hidden culprits that sometimes, you know, hair care brands tend to ignore. So that's what I would create.
Yeah. Well, that's fun.
Yeah. And
That's fun.
I'm actually in the process of creating that. So stay tuned. Sneak peek.
Well, look, listen, when you come back here, when so we can help you launch, and we can promote it out and get the word. I mean, you have your own channel, but you know, whatever we can do to get the word out.
Thank you.
And I will be a client. Okay, so then let's talk about your tea rinse, because I just saw it, and I went on your website, and I'm like, oh, every ingredient is like just beautiful. So tell us about your tea rinse.
Yes. So basically, I have the hydrating herbal hair tea rinse, and kind of how that came about was I started doing like tea rinses at home. I would just do green tea, and I saw so much research behind like just the benefits of green tea for the body, but also how it helps to reduce excessive shedding and also increase that anagen phase I was talking about earlier, that active hair growth phase. But I didn't want to just stop there with the green tea. I'm like, there's so many other herbs like hibiscus tea, which helps us soften the hair. There's peppermint and rosemary and fenugreek that stimulates the hair follicles. So I created this blend. It contains 8 different herbs. There's marshmallow root in there, nettles, all of these hair nourishing, scalp nourishing herbs within this one blend. And basically there's so many, and it's funny because I feel like I'm always learning how multi-purpose this tea blend is, but I typically recommend it as a rinse. So after you shampoo your hair, you take it and you just literally pour it on your hair, massage into your scalp. And a lot of times women see less shedding after one use. Like that's how powerful it is. And it also softens the hair as well. And then you can also use it in between your wash days as like a hydrating spritz, curl refresher in between your wash day. And the good thing is it's very convenient. I already put it in little tea bags for you, so you don't got to do no scoops.
Right. Do you rinse it out after you
can,
or do you keep it in?
Yep. So if you do it on your wash day, like before or after you shampoo, definitely rinse it out, and then of course put your conditioner on. But if you're just using it as like a hydrating spritz, you know, throwing in between your wash day, you can just leave it on. So
okay. And any closing words, anything that you want to share for the woman who, again, our women are dealing with hair loss. Some are seeing success, some are struggling. Any closing words?
Yeah, I would just say there's hope. You know, there's always hope. I would say don't get discouraged. I would also say speak life over your hair. You know, the Bible talks about how there's power of life and death in our tongue, you know, so I always believe that you will see what you say. Have to be mindful of what comes out of your mouth. So speak life over your hair, you know, like I said before, if you got to give your hair a name, you know, like Tiffany, I love you together while you're doing your scalp.
Right.
But I would just say, just try to go into this journey, because it is a journey. Let's be real. It's a journey. And with any journey, you got ups and downs, twists and turns and all the things. But as long as you are doing the work, when I say the work, meaning, you know, doing the research and implementing different things and being consistent with the serums and, you know, changing your diet and scalp massage, like whatever the things are, just staying consistent with that and just being full of hope, you will see results. And now it will take time, but that's okay, you know, because you don't want anything fast, because if it's fast, you probably won't keep it long anyway, you know?
Right.
So try to find joy in the journey and just know that there's always hope. And we're here. We got you, girl.
Yes, that's right. We are here. So head over to Tonya's channel. We'll link everything in the description box. And just thank you. God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. So everyone, as always, live well, live blessed, nourish your crown, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.